The sole reason for this video's existence is that I have so many family and friends asking me the exact same questions regarding my whereabouts this winter that it would just be easier to just talk about it here and then send this instead of like retyping the same messages like over and over. So for the winter holidays, I was sent to a spiritual retreat camp thing in Gabon. I will imagine quite a few eyebrows were skeptically raised when seeing the title, but I think you'll soon find that it is an accurate label. A bit of necessary context. My father is a Christian, Western Protestant Christian. And throughout my childhood, my mother went along with the Christian life, and thus me and my siblings were raised as Christians who went to church. However, throughout my youth and possibly before my birth, my mum had been studying the Bible, and eventually she one day decided that it was all poppycock. Thus, she found a new way of life that even after spending an entire week in a camp dedicated to its study, I literally could not tell you like what it is or what they believe exactly. Thus, I'm just going to place it under the decentralized demographic of New Age spirituality. I briefly had an agnostic phase myself throughout my preteen years, but after extensive Bible study at around the age of 13, in time for my confirmation, I solidified my allegiance with Jesus. Anyway, in the past summer, I basically like volunteered to go along with my mum on like this 3 day course, like in London, right, where they would like it was a bit like an initiation, or like, honest, I literally don't even know. Or basically, it was like 3 days of living the way of the life in the faith, and like my mother's spiritual faith, and then like seeing how it was and what it was like. Even though I disagreed with the practices and overall philosophy, I was trying to make my mother happy, and thus expressed interest in future trips because to be completely honest, back then it was like a vague thing in the future that I could just deal with tomorrow, and like I wasn't really thinking too hard. And then, if a little while later, my mum springs up a trip to Gabon on me, which was a lot longer and a lot more serious. My mother asked me if I wanted to go, and she said I had a choice, and I said no, and then she shouted at me and booked the ticket anyway, and we would begin to get into arguments months and months after, leading up to December on about this trip. One of the main reasons I didn't want to go is that I am the only religious child that my parents have, whereas my other two siblings are not Christians, and thus I thought it would be logical if they were the ones who to be exposed to a new faith and not me. Another reason was that I have like mock exams. I honestly like next week. Like as I'm filming this, I have mock exams like next week, and I'm still like on this trip. I'm still in Africa. So and the problem is that these exams are the most important. Like the problem is that these exams are the ones that apprenticeship employers and unis will be looking at results wise. So I kind of wanted to do well, and now I have little faith in them because I have not revised at all. Another reason that I didn't want to go was because I've just started screenwriting recently, and I wanted to complete a little thing I've been working on this winter, which was not possible. Another reason that I didn't want to go was because even though I still didn't understand like the faith enough, I understood enough to understand that it like, contradicted, Christianity, and thus I just didn't want to take part. Another reason that I didn't want to go was that a lot of the companies that I'd been looking at in my local city were just beginning to open up their apprenticeship vacancies, and I've missed a lot of opportunities while being on this trip. Another thing was that my friends had a lot of like things planned throughout the winter, and like with this one friend, we had like this like bus trip thing that I was very excited about. Another reason why was that this trip would take place over Christmas time, which is a holy time that I would rather dedicate to studying the Gospels rather than, you know, whatever I just did. I would say a big reason why I didn't want to go was that I applied for a job and got my first job ever and was set to start working throughout the Christmas holidays. But immediately after being accepted into my first position, I had to immediately and humiliatingly like just quit before my first shift because of this trip. And Now my CV remains drier than the Sahara. Another reason I didn't want to go was that I have like a lot of like homework that needs to be doing, like a lot of seriously long filming tasks that I would actually need weeks to complete, and a lot of essays to write, which I will be stuck behind on throughout all of January. Another reason I didn't want to go, despite all those arguments, one thing you should understand in the Yu-Gi-Oh game we call childhood is that the one trap card is that, they kind of your parents kind of own you, and that's how I found myself on the plane going to. It was first Morocco, so it was like a 3 hour flight to Morocco, and then a 5 hour flight to Gabon. I think this was the 19th of December, but I don't remember. What I do remember for sure was that it was immediately after my final day of college. After finishing the day at school, I immediately went to the train station and then to the airport and such. Basically, this trip had like a small organization of religious authority, and we were under their care for the entirety of the trip, and it was like this small group and like a hierarchy or something. So then when we got to the airport, one of the like people would like pick us up. As we were driving into this like forest and leaving civilization, I memorized the turns which the car took, which was not only actually kind of fun to do, but also like served in handy for later on. And we arrive, and I should probably explain the title now. So, So I'm pretty sure I didn't meet the Antichrist on this trip, but according to First John chapter 2, verses 22 to 23, anyone who denies and disrespects Jesus the Christ is the Antichrist. Obviously, we Christians believe in, the big figure, like the one, but we also believe that the energy of the Antichrist has been throughout millions and billions of people throughout history, ever since Jesus' time. Anyone who disrespects or like every Christphobic person throughout history is like they're all the antichrists. And no, yes, obviously this was another faith, but that doesn't make antichrist. If I was to be invited to a Buddhist temple, I wouldn't be like looking around like, oh, what is this, like liberal blasphemy. Because no, I would expect that the average Buddhist is just a chill person who doesn't like disrespect other religions. But these guys, so a cult, according to the Oxford Dictionary that I've referred to for this definition, is a small group of people with a set of beliefs or practices, typically religious, which are widely considered extreme or strange, and also they display excessive control over newcomers. And these guys kind of fit the bill. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with smaller decentralized faiths. After all of the Abrahamic religions basically started like illegal, and the few public followers were martyred. However, there's negative stereotypes about cults for a reason. Despite knowing it probably wouldn't go down that well, I decided to publicly show off my allegiance to Jesus, and it didn't go down well. I wore my, cross publicly and read my Bible like out in front of everyone, and they did not have like very nice things to say because basically, the whole so the week was preparation. One of the few beliefs that I picked up on from these people was that they believe in drugs. Basically, the final day of the week was we were supposed to ingest a lot of drugs that would supposedly enlighten us. And this is the magic elixir that turns boys into men. It'll like make us God even. So that's just well, that's certainly a take. And the rest of the 6 days were basically just spiritual preparation for this. One of the key differences between centralized religion and more niche spirituality is that a lot of religions, they believe in like a submission to a higher power, whereas like other religions believe in like ascendance, becoming that power. You can, God is one with us. And like I just don't agree with that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with believing that inherently, and I think that everybody should be entitled to the beliefs. I've never really belittled. I don't think I've ever really. If I have, I would like to apologize, but I don't think I've ever belittled or very aggressively questioned my mother about these things. I hope that I accepted it with love, but these people did not accept me with love. I was constantly laughed at and bullied, and they would call me sick and things like that. And they would call me I'm a slave, I'm a sheep, just because Christianity is popular. Just like you don't know anything better. And I'm open to criticism. I actually love arguments because I get to learn. But the thing is, these people were just they were just stupid. Like it was like Reddit atheists, but fused with drug addicts. Like it was bad. Like their arguments were just like there was this one guy, like he I was reading the Bible and I'd be like, oh, I didn't know you liked fiction. It's like, sure. Sometimes I really wish I was an atheist so that I could be bluntly disrespectful to people. I say this a lot, but honestly feel that God is the only thing that keeps me on a leash sometimes. So the entire time, I just try to keep my head down and just not react to anything. Specifically, the leader of this group, he was this really childish, bigoted man. Like, this guy was just like, Jesus is, he was a tyrant, he was a dictator. I'm just kind of just kind of absorbing the thingy, just not saying anything. I was like, it was honestly kind of funny. My mom is kind of homeless face. Like some of his rants, I was just kind of hitting that because I couldn't take him seriously. There's nothing wrong with atheists and there's nothing wrong with people who don't believe in Jesus. But I think that you have to read the Bible or at least the Gospels before you enter debates about it, or if you try to criticize it, or at least have IQ above room temperature, because well, when I prayed to Jesus, he didn't answer. So, what? That's legitimately one of the arguments they were saying. And things like, oh, you believe in the white man with blue eyes and blonde hair. And it's like, okay. Yeah, that's even one that my mom likes to use a lot. I'll get into this later, but me and my mom like to have, debates about this. But luckily, my mum isn't Antichrist by any means, not all. She's an actual respectful, decent person. But the people in these faiths, they were just the thing is, my mum has actually studied the Bible, and she actually brings up good points. So I thought these people were going to be like that, but no. So mum, if you're watching this, respectfully, your friend is I already mentioned this one guy in particular, but he was just really annoying. He just kind of kept really going for me. And the thing is, I've been bullied before, and this wasn't even it really hurt me emotionally. These guys were just annoying, and it was it was a thing where he would just come and be like, the Bible, the way it's structured, the text and the font, it's too small and stuff, and it's too vague, and stuff like that. I think a key distinction between my faith and these guys' faith was that they had all the answers for everything, whereas the Bible claims there are some mysteries we will never understand, which I think is just I just feel that's just a lot more reasonable. I feel we on the speck of dust in a corner of the cosmos, being able to understand the entire universe is just a very self-centered ideology. I would even argue that the idea that we could become omnipotent is also very self-centered, but I don't want to, go there. It got to the point where they confiscated my Bible and they called it the devil's work. I kind of stole it back the next day, but still, it was it was no, damn. Because I thought it would, because basically the first 2 days I thought it would just be slander, but then they started to take action and stuff. It was quite embarrassing on their part, honestly, because the leaders, so there were these two guys, there was a old man and an old woman, and they had been ingesting the drug for decades, and respectfully, you could tell. And then they were like, they were calling themselves God, and they were like, we've been enlightened, we know better, listen to us, source, trust me, bro. And then they were using this enlightenment. They were like using the infinite intelligence to bully minors. Like like even if I was like stupid, like there had to be even if Christianity is wrong, there had to be a better way of putting it rather than like stupid arguments. And I would really believe that if this miracle drug that they kept promoting like nonsensically would really give you the answers to everything, then they would come up with better arguments than r/atheism. Yeah, another problem. I don't do drugs. I have a I have a personal rule where I will not take any substances that are not administered by an NHS professional. The reason I say NHS specifically is for one key reason, in that the NHS is free, and if the drugs were truly addictive and like they had bad intentions in giving them to the public, I feel like they would like charge. And I've also never even like if I've like had paracetamol from the NHS or from my local doctor, I've never really like wanted to like have more. I mean, I don't think I've ever gotten addicted to the NHS like drugs. And even then, like if I don't have to, then I won't. Like I don't want to take drugs, especially addictive drugs, like and then like bad drugs and stuff like that. And this was like one of them. Like they were like respectfully, they were literally pushing drugs, substance that has physiological effects and stuff and makes you hallucinate. So then they're getting essentially high, and then they're hallucinating things that their like brain wants them to say, and then they're like, "Oh my god, it's enlightenment. This is a gift from God." And then they just like keep taking drugs, and they're charging ridiculous amounts of money to get people to fly over and then take the drugs. And it was honestly like very depressing, because yeah, another thing that I really didn't like about this trip was that they were charging they were charging tens of thousands of euros to come here and be enlightened. Like the church is free, the mosque is free. I can walk into the mosque and they will give me the wisdom, because unlike this thing, Islam and Christianity are like, well, actually, I can't. To be fair, a lot of those mega churches, and like specifically in America and stuff, and Britain, yeah, they're pretty bad. But still, like normal like humble churches that are free. Like it's not like a money making thing. Honestly, I honestly feel like my mom got scammed, and I have intentions to have a conversation with her about how she found this way of life and whether she truly believes in her heart that this is the way. Because they're like, okay, I'm God, nice to meet you, and you're my chosen child. I love you. So I've given you basically, so like drugs. And if you're gonna hallucinate crazy stuff, and like it's a message from me, from God, and you can become like me, for tens of thousands of euros. But still, give me all that money and I will pay you to become like, it's just like, oh, it was like, it's nonsense, man. Like I didn't once disrespect or criticize their faith throughout this trip. I know that for a fact. I just kept my head down and let them do their thing, because I felt I would be a hypocrite, but because I'll be like, you guys are disrespecting Jesus. And even though I think Christianity is correct and I think these guys are wrong, I don't have any authority to slander them. And even the things I've said throughout this video have been disrespectful, but like, it's just my opinion. Like, no, bro, like drugs, man. Like the thing, like, yeah, in the communion, you have to, yeah, they make you, oh my god. Because I was telling them, I was telling this guy, I don't feel like enlightenment can come from drugs. I feel like enlightenment and self improvement comes from years of internal, like just living life. I feel like self improvement is a thing that happens within, not something that you ingest and it will just make you better. That's just like my view. But then their counter argument was that you take communion where they force you to eat bread and drink wine. And it's like that's bread! Like what? It's food! I know that some Christian denominations don't believe that, the bread and wine is actually Jesus's body and blood in the flesh and like physically there. And, like I don't think that matters because firstly it's not mandatory, like you can refuse it, and I've had eating problems ever since youth, and I used to not even like have the bread and like wine, and even now I still don't have the wine because I'm trying to live a non-alcoholic life. And secondly, like I can't believe I'm explaining this. Another funny thing about the wine, okay? Because so these guys are God. They've been enlightened. They're Buddha. They're in one with the universe, and they're pushing around beer and being absolute buffoons at a bar all night on New Year's Eve. Whereas in Christianity, we would, or I don't know, I'm speaking for other denominations here, but in Christianity, New Year's Eve is a quiet ceremony where you reflect and spend time with God. But in this religion, you wake up in a pile of your own vomit and smell like like trash. I don't agree with alcohol. I'll just say that I don't think I really yeah. I want to adjust the camera. It's a bit uncomfortable the way it was. I'm sorry, I've been going on like huge tangents and stuff and not really like explaining what the trip was like. So, sorry, I don't really have a script. I don't like to script these things. So, the day would basically, we were in this like village, right? Like in the forest, like away from like the city and stuff like that. So, it was like we would like drive into this forest, and then there was actually a pretty cool like community around. Okay, so like there was like a group of like houses and stuff and like a road, and then yeah, they basically lived independently, and that was the surrounding like neighborhood. And it was like a very like beautiful place. I would say that's one of the few pros of this trip, except it wasn't even a pro because when I tried to like go out walking and stuff like that, they would like get really angry and threaten to tie me up because apparently, like, uh, the concept of enlightenment is tied to those few square miles on that specific floor or something. I don't even know. One time it was actually quite annoying because basically I had my like shoes, right, and I had my shoes and I had my bag, and I was out walking, and then the one of the like security people, because they had like actual security, which was even better, truly an outstanding faith. They would like catch me, and then he was like he brought me back, and he was yapping about how he's trying to run away and shit, and then they check my bag and there's nothing in the bag. Like I have a wallet and like that's it. I left all my like stuff in my room because obviously they're not really gonna believe me, but I just wanted to like buy some food, to be honest. Even though it was nice to like be walking in the neighborhood and stuff, they were just very, very, very against it, and they banned it from like day two, and then they like closed the gates. Even though I found a way around and would just go out every day in secret, but then they really like thought they had me. There's a running theme here, to be honest. Like it was just not like oppression, but it was like they were like very control freaks. Don't like do anything. You have to be focused on taking drugs. That's the like because it's a shame because Gabon is like a wonderful country, and it was like very beautiful and stuff. But I feel like we just wasted the holiday because we just didn't like do anything really. We were just stuck in this like same like very small like enclosed space with like actual gates and guards. Like it was bad. The thing they did was they like took the cross, and I think I already mentioned they took away the Bible, they took away my phone, and they took away my bags. A few of my basically there was a situation where a few of our luggage was like behind at the airport, and it got delivered a few days later, and they took the luggage like immediately. So Like just I was basically just reusing like clothes. And the thing is, they were doing this to none of the other like initiationists people. I'm sorry, I don't know English. For context, it was me and there was around six other people, and we were all doing this initiation thing together, and we were like preparing to like um, become enlightened, basically. I had like manga in my bag to like pass the time, and it was taken because it supposedly it was like distracting me or like reminding me from the outside world. And you would think, well, yeah, you're doing a lot of like important work on this trip, but the truth is, we were literally doing nothing. Like, actually, dude, we would spend 8 hours a day just sitting around. I promise you, it was just honestly quite depressing, a lot of it, because I was just like thinking about like the amount of time that was being wasted. Not even just being in Gabon, because like I said, I feel like I would have really enjoyed this trip if I was able to like walk around, but no, we were just like stuck there. There was like this seating area where they had to be, and they would do a lot of like conversations with it, and we just always had to be there, just sat there in that same space. And the thing is, like, it's only a week, but like a week is a month when you're not doing anything. Like, it was bad. The only upside was that it gave me a lot of time to pray to Yeshua and to work on like my screenplay in my head, like thinking of like ideas and stuff. I spent a lot of time, just like praying and like talking to like God about like how I was doing and stuff. But even though they took my Bible and I took it back, so it wasn't like there wasn't like a huge problem, but it did mean I couldn't like read it in public anymore, so it was a bit annoying. In the seating area, they had this very interesting book, right? So it was like about a guy who had conversations with God. So I'm like, okay, this is sick, so now I can like understand the faith. So I was reading it, and basically the book was about the philosophy that you are God and that God is everybody and that we can awaken all that power and stuff. So it was like, okay, but even that book had like serious problems because it had some decent criticisms of Abrahamic religions, but then it was just getting to the point where it's like, the 9/11 terrorists were chanting Allah is great before they did what they did. Therefore, that's what Islam teaches to people. And it's just, like, honestly, I'm very thankful that there were no Islamic people on this trip, because a lot of the people that were there, they struck me as Islamophobic as well. On Christmas Eve, I was praying to Yeshua and I was asking him, how can I prepare such a place that hates you so much? How can I prepare them for your arrival? And he told me that I need to spread love and peace, because the thing is, I've already mentioned this before, but these people were supposedly God. Like, they'd been enlightened, and they were the top of the top. They'd learned everything they needed to learn, and they were perfect beings and stuff. And despite that, they were just a bunch of very angry, like just unhappy people. Like, I'm not the happiest either, but these guys were just like, they were not like enjoying themselves either. I would like have a minor, like, I don't know, try to engage in conversation, and they would just like start with the attacks and stuff. Like I mentioned, they honestly, I kind of got like bullied. Like, they just called me like sick and stuff like a lot. And I mean, I remember on the first night I was there, I just stood up and I was like, okay, I don't agree with any of this. I was forced to be here, so I would, and respectfully, I just don't like believe in this faith. So I would rather not participate and instead watch and study your faith, and then I would consider whether I'd be willing to be initiated. And then they would just like the I've already mentioned how childish this guy was. Like, he even like insulted my dad. Like, it was crazy. He'd be like, you come from a line of liars, and liars and stuff, and you'll continue, the priests in the church, they'll continue to make you a liar and stuff. And he would like sit with a huff in his chest and be like, yeah, I sure showed him. And so it was very weird. It felt like he was trying to rage bait me, but he was just so pathetic. I couldn't like take him seriously. like honest, that's a common theme. They tried to be like very threatening. They threatened to beat me, as if they threatened to tie me up and things like that. They starved me and like stuff like that, and they tried to like lock the gate, so like take away my stuff so I couldn't. But they were just so like pathetic and incompetent at their jobs. I could just take my stuff back and like just be on my way and just not really care. And even when I didn't leave the gates, like I could just kind of like stay out their way a lot of the time because it was a kind of large place and it is a forest. So like you can just kind of find a spot and no one's gonna find you unless you make yourself known. There's been a lot of like red flags I've mentioned about all this, this cult and stuff, but the biggest one was it wasn't even like the way they disrespected the man I've been praying to for every day for the past few years. It was because basically, the one thing that made me completely and vehemently disagree with this entire way of life was that they described it as a hospital. They described people like me as sick, and they said the drug was medicine, and it would make me normal. And that was like the number one, like as a autistic person and professional weirdo, it is my number one pet peeve in life to be told to act normal or be normal or things like that. And it unironically made me it uh, uh, like it's just that is a very like horrible ideology to have, to be honest, I think, because it's like there's an expectation of a standard of how someone should act, and if someone isn't like that, instead of embracing those differences, you'll just put them down and stuff. It was like a very like it felt like a dictatorship because like again these people were declaring themselves as God, and we had to like listen to them because they were infinitely wise. So they were normal and they were perfect, and we were sick, and we had to, take the like medicine. And then it was so embarrassing because they just kept yapping about the same. And the thing is, I was asking about this drug, how it was discovered, and the history, what they base their beliefs on, what happens when you take it, and then would just be like, their source was, trust me, bro, or like, it's good for you, it's medicine, and stuff like that. You know, and the thing is, basically, on the last evening before the last day, sorry, there was like this festival of like fire or something where we had to like do ridiculous dances around a fire and then prepare for the drugs like the next day. And then they made the huge mistake of saying, we're not gonna force you, don't do it. And even though I wasn't gonna do it anyway, it's just like, well, I mean, there it is. So the next morning, I was just like, no. And then, to be honest, I did feel bad for some of my fellow candidates because, like I mentioned, while the majority of them were annoying and insufferable people, I did like a few of them. A lot of them were very vulnerable men who had been through a lot in their lives, and I felt like bad for them and stuff like that. And they were kind to me, and a lot of them were disappointed in me, and they were like, bro, like don't back out and stuff. I was like the youngest there, by the way, so they were like, you don't regret this and stuff. And it was what made me depressed was that a lot of them had taken these drugs, like gone through this whole ceremony multiple times, and they like kept coming back, kept giving this guy all their money because the taking the drugs made them feel good. So then, yeah, and then they'll be like, bro, once you take it, you're gonna feel so much better and stuff. And then basically, the guy called me a coward, and he's like, you're not brave, you're not a warrior, you just don't like anything foreign and stuff like that. And respectfully, I feel like it's actually easier to go along with the crowd and just get pressured into doing something. And in college, a lot of college is not people like try this vape or like come out drinking with us. whatever and stuff like that. You want to do a line, behind the school and stuff like that. And even though I try not to associate with those kinds of people, I also, because I don't like myself and I think I'm a very flawed person, I'm still friends with people who do things that I don't agree with because that doesn't encompass who they are. And I don't think it's my position to judge people. And if I like their personality, then I'll be friends with them. But in college, I do have friends that do things that I disagree with. So I'll be like, bro, don't be a bitch, come, throw a southern accent, don't be a pussy, come drinking, and stuff like that. It'll make you more open. It'll make you a better hangout partner. You'll get to loosen off. It's good for you, every once in a while. And it's like it's just the same things here. These guys were just childish. They're like the same like playground insults. They would, like I mentioned, they insulted my family and like they insulted, Jesus, and they're thinking like, oh, this will rile him up for like some like, oh, like I'm just hitting one of these like, like I'm just, oh my god, because I've already mentioned the first night where they like the leader like shouted at me and stuff and insulted Jesus. But this happened, I think, four separate times, and it would just like go on these really stupid like rants and stuff. And it was, there's no proof of Jesus, and they made it up. And he did you know that he was in the slave trade, and he was like beating the black people. And it's like, okay, like I was just like not like, yeah, good point, good point. I don't want you to go off this video thinking, I feel bad for Joseph. He's been oppressed and stuff. Because no, these guys were like pathetic. If I was faced like with actual, serious, antichrist people who like challenge me or like, actually hurt me in any way, because like I mentioned, I've been bullied before, and one of the reasons that I'm grateful for Christianity was because it just made me not care. Because the only people whose like values like matter to me now is God. So I don't care what random people are gonna tell me now, because even in college I'll get teased. You've got to grow up from fairy tales and stuff. You can't be serious about this. Like, bro, it's not real. And it's like, yeah, like, well, you do you. I didn't say anything about, your faith. And, I probably shouldn't have said some of the things I've said in this video about their faith. And, they're entitled to believe whatever they want to believe. But I can definitively say that they struck first. I did not criticize or, like, belittle them first. I just expressed my Christianity, and then they started with the attack. You can't even call it an attack, because it's like Janamba trying to punch Gogeta. Like, it's just like pathetic. I'm not like calling myself Gogeta or anything. Actually, that was a bad metaphor. So on the very last day of the initiation, basically we were set to take this take this special magical substance. It will cure cancer, and it will tell you what Obama's last name is. And then we were set. Basically, we're about to become God. It sounds too good to be true. But because it is, I'd love to say that I met God, but like these guys didn't seem like they were. One thing I was grateful for was that my brother, throughout this, basically my brother came along with me, basically as a chaperone, because I'm still a minor in a new country. And the thing is, he was often against me, to be honest, but never like disrespectful to me. Like, he was just kind of trying to mediate between my parents, the authorities, and me, and like trying to just get me to follow the rules. Because to be honest, I did make things difficult for him. And when I rejected to take the drugs on the final day, he came up to me and he was like, I respect your point of view. I'm not saying you're wrong, but like, mom and dad aren't going to be happy. And so, and he just kind of left me to it. I was very grateful for my brother. He was very nice and fair. most importantly fair. Like he, when I did something wrong, he would tell me, but he never like he never he was great. But basically, after I refused to take the drugs because that was a choice that they set up. They said we're not going to force you. So in response to a polite declination, uh, in response to a polite decline, I think, in response to a polite decline, they tied me up and starved me for the day. So that wasn't great. It was very funny though because basically, the entire time of my captivity, while they tied me up, I was just singing like Sonic the Hedgehog songs and gospel music and trying to piss them off as much as possible. And I think it worked because they let me go. I was singing Sonic the Hedgehog songs because like he's all about freedom and like liberation and stuff like that. And unironically, this trip inspired me to write a Sonic the Hedgehog fan fiction about him fighting against a dictator that wants to impose his will on the whole world or something. Which, if I like go forward with that and get more concrete ideas, then I would love to talk to you about that. Also, they did starve me for the day, but I just kind of stole food from the kitchen anyway. So I mean, it wasn't too bad, but like at the same time, like human rights. It was quite. Also, another thing that was funny about being tied up was that basically they left briefly and I was on my own, and it was honestly quite nice because firstly they had to like go and like actually get the other people. They had to oversee the people taking their drugs and then them like lying down to recover and stuff. They had to do this like holy ritual, so they did have to leave me alone for a while, which was the best gift possible actually, yeah? Because alone time with I just like being alone, I guess, and it was nice, and I could just be singing. But more importantly, it gave me the chances to basically just kind of figure out the knot and just untie myself. Like I promise you, I'm not in MI6. I'm not in the Boy Scouts. I'm not a member of the Avengers. But like I know I just undid like the ropes. Like it was quite a fun challenge actually. I just kind of like it really hurt my wrists and like ankles. But like again, like these guys were just either I'm smart or they're just like incompetent. Like they're just stupid. I don't know how to like do knots. I don't go fishing or anything. Like I just like worked it out. I don't know what happened really, and then I just like basically because I got quite lucky because the way it was set up was that they were far away and I could kind of see if one of them was coming, so I could steal food and then like eat it, and then like if they were coming, I would retie my wrists and then just like sit back down or something, and then basically I would jokingly be telling them, rate my song or something, and then the guy, basically the guy told me to shut up, but I kept singing, and it was really funny. That kind of concludes the trip. Um, right now, basically the actual spiritual initiation thing is over, but because of our plane tickets, we bought it for 2 weeks. So we are chilling in like this neighborhood at one of the guys' like houses, and like I think they have like this joint property or something because there's like a lot of rooms. Actually, hold up. I don't really know how to describe this, but we're staying here, and frustratingly, there's a gate here as well that you can't see, and I'm not allowed to leave and go into the like overall town. I mean, to be honest, part of me is kind of glad for that though, because when we were back in the forest village, because I did like exit the like neighborhood multiple times to go out into civilization, to go out like walking by myself, right? And because I think I mentioned earlier, there was like a lot of roads leading into this forest. But like I mentioned, when we went there at first, I made sure to memorize the turns. So I wrote them down, and then when I was planning my journey, I like escaped like the whole like place, and I just went on like a like really long, like hour long walk. It was really funny. It was sick. And the thing is, another thing was that I wanted to talk to my parents because on my phone I had no data, there was no Wi-Fi, there was no SIM card for like Gabon, and there was no signal. So I wanted to go out into I wanted to go out into civilization to find signal and then call my parents and stuff and call my sisters like as well. He was at home, and I promised we could stay in communication. So, like, sorry about that. The problem was that basically I was asking people for their phones, and je parle français, so it wasn't that they were just kind of giving me very dirty looks, and none of them, a few of them spat on me, so that wasn't amazing. So, it got me wondering if there was something about my appearance which would distinguish me from the average, Gabonese, person. So I don't think I considered that. So yeah. What's great about being mixed race is that in racial issues, especially at college, I can play both sides. I can just roast like all the white people and the black people. It's beautiful. I think we are heading back on Saturday. I'm recording this on Thursday and we are chilling. The thing is, there is Wi Fi here, but like there's not Wi Fi. Like, respectfully, I feel like I will try because I've been getting a lot of messages from like my friends and stuff, and I've been receiving like specifically WhatsApp is weird. I can go on WhatsApp, read the messages, but and then it just won't. I can't send anything back, and I don't even know if it will register to them if I've read the messages or not. So to all my family and friends, like I'm sorry, basically. I can film and edit this video offline, but it might just only upload to YouTube once I like go to the airport and get Wi-Fi. Something that was funny, that was a jump scare, was that we briefly went back to the airport, I think, and then the phone would just freeze from all the sudden like notifications and stuff. I'm embarrassed to say that while my brothers were from his girlfriend asking how he was, mine were from Reddit arguments and Discord servers. In conclusion, I do not ask for pity because I literally did not. I don't think I like suffered at all. The worst thing I suffered was just boredom and like having to listen to pathetic antichrist arguments. And I would like to actually dedicate this time to think about people who are actually being oppressed, like for any religion at all, like who are like their lives are being genuinely like put at risk and by more competent people than these cult members that I've gotten to know. And yeah, like I mentioned, Christianity has been great for me because I feel like my younger self would have kind of crumbled under these circumstances. But now that I know like God's true purpose and stuff, I just don't care about things. People at college, they can mock me all they want, and all these people, they can get into arguments with me all they want. And like I said earlier, like actual atheists, I love having debates with atheists that are smart and people like my mother who have actually read and studied the Bible and legitimately give me difficult questions that I can't answer sometimes. Like full on actual flaws with the faith. Because no religion is flawless. Even if I think Christianity is correct, it's not flawless. And my mum is actually a smart and nice person. And when we have like religious debates and stuff, like she's actually like a like you, you know what I'm trying to say. But the point is that these people are just like whatever, man. I do not blame my parents for sending me here at all. Part of it has been fun, and I think I've learned a lot. And even though I would rather spend Christmas time at home where I can practice my faith undisturbed, I think this was a good experience, and my love for my parents is not diminished in the slightest. Actually, if this was some kind of like punishment, then I mean I'm not the best child, so like, good job, I guess. Um, and I don't really think this was like an attempt to like get me out of my faith because my dad is a Christian and he advocated for this, and he said it would be good for me, and I think it has been because I think I now know how to deal with being challenged and like being bullied for my faith and who I am. especially my autism. Like they had this thing for my autism, and they just kept picking on me with it, and it's like, okay, man, like you're not looking so good yourself, respectfully. Like again, I shouldn't be saying things like that. I need to be like, better. I need to like respect people. And a lot of times throughout this week, I had like, vengeance in my heart. Like I wanted to like clap back and stuff, but Christianity has shown me it's not the way. And I even made an edit, like a Christianity edit, about how to deal with oppression and stuff like that. And I think the advice that Yeshua gave me on Christmas Eve was genuinely helped my life, because now I understand, because these people in this cult, because they're like, very angry, unhappy people. So if I'm able to change their mind in any way, if facts and logic won't work, then if I show them the love of, Jesus or Yeshua, I keep switching between the two. I'm very sorry. If I just embrace love and show people love, then they'll be like, they'll ask like, why are you so happy and stuff, and that'll be a more productive way to, combat against people who don't understand Christianity and stuff. So even though my human rights were violated and that I was tied up and beaten throughout this trip, I liked it. And I mean, no, I didn't like it, but like it was good for me. It was a good experience, I think. Although I like, again, I'm sorry to like my friends and stuff, but there'll be more winters in the future. I think that's basically everything I wanted to say. Like I said, I don't have a script, and I'm sorry if this one like turns out really long. And basically that this is honestly quite coincidental, because speaking of Antichrist quotes, I'm currently writing a Revelation adaptation um, about the 7 year tribulation period and the Antichrist's reign. And if once I fully develop the story and write the screenplay, I would be very excited to make a video talking about my methodology for screenwriting as a beginner and my future plans with fiction in general. And I will continue to be making music videos and edits when I can and stuff. But this is quite the important academic year, so I will be very busy actually. I have A levels, so yeah, and a lot of homework to do. So yes, have a nice Christmas, and I hope the best for your 2026.